It's the end of the week, so you know what that means. The Friday Night Wars are kicking off. WWE versus AEW is on full force, and we got a lot of wrestling news to talk about. Roman Reigns opens up about AEW, Sasha Banks having some fun against AEW, and more. So hit those notifications and let's get right into it. Before some of that juicy stuff, we got the latest in regards to Bray Wyatt and another potential reason up to why he was let go by WWE. Of course, one of the main reasons that we already have known is the fact that WWE has been doing budget cuts. Bray Wyatt has been in the company for quite a while, so his contract was definitely a beefy one. But even that isn't an excuse for WWE releasing him because of how much money they're making, how much money they were making during the pandemic and even saving. So adding to that already ridiculous reason, one that doesn't really make sense, Andrew Zarian ended up reporting a couple of more reasons up to why WWE released him, indicating that in addition to the financial aspect, Bray Wyatt was said to be a difficult person to work with. This is something that we probably heard before because we know that Bray Wyatt is extremely creative. Look at his character, look at his promo, so chances are he really wanted to put his own spin on things, and we know how WWE just doesn't like that a lot. The report went on to indicate that Bray Wyatt also has some performance issues in the ring and that he also has some weight issues, which is safe to say that WWE probably wanted him to lose weight, and it was probably something difficult for him to do so because if you look at it, he been the same since he debuted in WWE, and it's a shame that that became a problem now, and that is a problem ever because this guy is a creative genius that gave us an incredible character, an incredible gimmick, and made everything that he did work. The performance and the weight issue kind of doesn't make sense because he was already cleared to wrestle and his wrestling skills was never an issue. And now WWE have booked themselves into a corner where they definitely need top stars. Where's the Braun Strowman? Where's the Bray Wyatt? And so on. Instead, we're getting Goldberg back because, you know, it's a Saudi Arabia show coming up. And talking about Goldberg, according to the Wrestling Observer Radio, WWE is said to be far more than just aware that they have a roster problem with so many 40-plus-a-year-old wrestlers being on the main roster. One of the reasons NXT has changed so much is because WWE is not in denial about the need to get wrestlers in their 20s ready for Raw and SmackDown. This explains a bit more everything that we are seeing on NXT, where it's kind of clear now that NXT is definitely back to developmental and it's more focused on building the future because Vince McMahon wants people who could potentially headline WrestleMania in 10 years from now. And this is not to say that this is not a good idea, because it is. WWE should be building for the future, but I feel like the more underlying issue is the booking. Finn Balor could have headlined WrestleMania 3 years ago if you just booked him correctly when he was drafted to the main roster. Shinsuke Nakamura could have been the same case. Robert Roode as well. And yes, some of these superstars I'm mentioning are veteran in the business, but these are chances already wasted, much like they have wasted chances with other young talents that have been called up over the last 3 years. They get onto SmackDown or Raw, and after the first feud, there's nothing for them to do, and they just get lost in the shuffle. So it almost feels like it doesn't matter what they do on NXT, because at the end of the day, if Braun Breaker gets called up next year and they don't keep that momentum going that he has on NXT already, then we're back to where we started. You know that the Friday Night Wars are heating up when top stars are talking about it. SmackDown card is obviously loaded tonight with Brock Lesnar returning in a massive main event, literally a WrestleMania main event quality matchup. Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks. And you know it's real because Sasha Banks is tweeting out the following, sending out an image of her matchup against Becky Lynch with the caption, "It's a clobbering time." There's no doubt that Sasha Banks is a CM Punk fan, but here obviously she is hyping up the fans and just having some fun, throwing some shades at AEW/CM Punk. It's gonna be clobbering time tonight for CM Punk as well, so we're gonna be getting a lot of action. And the competition has heated up up for longer than 30 minutes. Supersized SmackDown is gonna go 30-minute longer, so it's gonna compete with AEW Rampage. But Tony Khan added even more this week, as he indicated that we will be getting Daniel Bryan versus Minoru Suzuki on YouTube on the buy-in of the AEW Rampage show. So AEW versus WWE is gonna be going down for an hour and a half instead. And Tony Khan already indicated that he is ready to bring in the heat. He's not the only one who has been vocal about it though, because a big topic of discussion this morning is of course Roman Reigns calling out AEW and explaining why he doesn't view AEW as a competition. While in an interview with Complex, and of course hyping up the supersized episode of SmackDown and the fact that the last 30 minutes will be commercial free, Roman Reigns stated the following when he was asked if he views AEW as competition. He initially indicated that personally he doesn't see it as competition, stating that it is a subjective topic as there's a lot of passion that sways and creates an unbiased opinion. He stated he's the type of person who will compete at anything as he wants to be the best at anything that he does. Then he explained, so me, I don't see the real competition with AEW because I think their fan base legitimately is a hardcore fan base. So there's like a ceiling and a built-in ground to that viewership. The WWE is trying to connect with everyone. We are trying to connect with the mainstream. We are trying to put in the casual fans. We are trying to engage the new viewer while also serving our hardcore fan base and give them compelling stories to fulfill them as well. Roman Reigns stated that he thinks it is strange when the audience is probably the biggest character in your show. He continued, I think because they are the new kids on the block, they are the cool kids in town, I guess because of how premature and how novel it kinda still is. I think they are still being babied by these hardcore wrestling fans, which is fine, that's great. It's just a weird argument because there's so much bias and there's so much to it. Roman Reigns continued by noting that there might be people on the WWE roster that thinks that they need to get better as a performer, adding that there's nobody in the whole world, any other promotion in WWE, I'm better at this art form than anybody else, and I stand on that. I'm not just talking about, oh, his spots are so good and he counters really well. That stuff doesn't mean anything to me. When you tally it all up, nobody touches me in this business. End quote. Obviously on the last statement, he was definitely putting himself over, and to be fair, rightfully so, because Roman Reigns has been one of the best thing in the industry for the last year and a half. Many will argue that he has been the best thing in the whole industry. My thoughts on the whole thing, AEW not being competition, well, it's kind of clear that they already are at this point. Roman Reigns does make a really good point that AEW is extremely new right now, and they have a hardcore fan base. A fan base that, let's be honest, probably still watches WWE even though complains, which I guess sounds a bit like me. Overall, it's kind of obvious that this Roman Reigns answer is basically a WWE answer. We've seen it before, WWE indicating that quote unquote everything is competition and that they're not worried about AEW and so on. But I think the fact that Roman is being asked about it, so he's being forced to talk about it, kind of really indicates how AEW is indeed getting into that position where there are a big competition, or at least getting to be there. Anyways guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, to continue being up to date on all the latest wrestling news or rumors and reports, so make sure to hit those notifications. I'll catch you on the next one, so stay savage.